Good evening and welcome to another episode of Mowing After Dark here on the College Football Mafia Network on a sultry Sunday. I don't know how the weather's like for everybody else out there, but 104 heat index in Ohio today, at
That
least
sounds
where I live.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm usually not a guy who puts the air conditioning on in the vehicles. I'm a roll the windows down and blast the Van Halen kind of guy, but yeah, today was definitely a day you use the AC in the car. There was just no escaping the heat. So hopefully it's a lot better wherever everybody else out there in the viewing audience is. How was the weather in LA today?
It's beautiful. It's definitely on the warmer side, but we don't ever get that, or rarely. I could probably count them on my hand. That humidity aspect that makes it super fun for you guys too. So
Yeah, you get
I'm
that nice ocean breeze too.
I do where I am. I'm on that side of the mountains now. If I went into the valley, it'd probably be one of those days where it's like the TV show Entourage. For those of you who watched it, and the guy's temperature in his car goes up 20 degrees in 3 miles. But I'm not suffering from that. So
Good deal. Of course, I am your host, Moen, and I am joined tonight by my co-host, Rock and Rant of at CFB Express, the CFB Express YouTube channel. Definitely check him out over there. If you haven't subscribed yet, give him a subscription, give him a follow, give him a like. They release all kinds of videos, especially on recruiting. Very good stuff over there. We're going to be talking tonight about Wisconsin filing the lawsuit against the University of Miami for poaching. I want to get Rock's opinion. Rock is a Miami Hurricane alum and fan. I'm interested to hear what he has to say. I've seen a lot of sniping between the fan bases this weekend on the Xverse, Twitterverse. I just like to remind everybody that, you can disagree without being disagreeable. And sometimes you can just agree to disagree on a subject. But I want to give Rock's opinion on this. This affects him more than most. And I told Ryan Willie if you would like to rebut it, he is more than welcome to call in. And I don't have the phone set up where he'll be able to hear Rock, but I got the phone set up where everybody can hear Ryan. So we'll go with that. But Rock, let's talk about it. Late Friday, of course, love these late Friday news dumps. Yahoo Sports was the first to report it that Wisconsin had filed a lawsuit against the University of Miami for poaching, tortuous interference. I don't know what the exact legal term that they're using in their lawsuit is of the Xavier Lucas thing that happened, what was this, about 6 months ago, right?
yeah, well, it began in mid-December
In
and
December.
then continued into January.
Yeah. So that was filed, and then and I'll put this on stage real quick. Whoops, wrong one. Move. Add stage. There we go. Big Ten statement to On3 Sports on Wisconsin's lawsuit filed against Miami. The Big Ten Conference is aware of the litigation recently filed by the University of Wisconsin-Madison against the University of Miami and is supportive of UW-Madison's position as alleged the University of Miami knowingly ignored contractual obligations and disregarded the principle of competitive equity that is fundamental to collegiate athletics. The Big Ten Conference believes that the University of Miami's actions are irreconcilable with a sustainable college sports framework and is supportive of UW-Madison's efforts to preserve. Okay. All right, Rock. We've heard from Wisconsin. We've heard from the Big Ten now. Give me your thoughts and feelings. Give the audience your thoughts and feelings on this.
Well, my thoughts and feelings are you won't hear from Miami publicly other than they have whatever 20 business days to respond, and that's probably all you'll hear. I think my backdrop says what I believe to be the case, and that is glass houses, man, glass houses. And I don't mean your probation. Tell me you don't. Let's see. How can I do this visually as well? Let me see. I think I have an idea because That's where I'm at. So that's kind of what I think. Tell me you don't know the difference between a memorandum of understanding and a contract without telling me, Badger. That's kind of what I think. And it's the same thing I said back in January when this all went down, right? Which is, if you have an agreement that has not given, so there's, people are confusing a lot of things in my opinion. They're confusing the collective as well as the Wisconsin thing. The Wisconsin part, the specific Wisconsin, not their collective. You can have an agreement, an understanding, something that looks like a contract. But if something hasn't happened yet that it's contingent upon the House settlement, and if you haven't given them any money, and you couldn't give any money because the money that you're talking about wasn't going to be was for revenue sharing, and that wasn't going to be effective until the House settlement happened, and then actually till July 1st, you didn't have a contract. You had a lot of things that look like a contract. If Moen, if you get a job offer, and you have some paperwork that says you're going to do that, but you haven't started work yet, and you haven't gotten paid yet, and somebody else comes and offers you something after you go to them, then you don't have a contract. Like you didn't get anything yet. There's nothing there for you to fight. A contingency hadn't happened yet. So I'm in the same place that it was before. You may not like what you think Miami did through hearsay or not. You can make an argument that we don't really know who contacted who first, what the mechanisms are. I think there's so many flaws within the Wisconsin agreement. I'll give you one really, really specific thing in their lawsuit. They said, as if this was a piece of indicting Miami, that Miami, once they went out of not being a transfer portal thing because Xavier just withdrew from school and whatever, they said that Miami violated its own transfer rules that said that you had to do something by November. Hey, I got a little story for you guys in Wisconsin and everybody else. Everybody's transfer deadline for their school is completely self-imposed on the school. There's no legal standing, and exceptions are made all of the time. And here's even a further part to that. Every single football player who goes through the transfer portal in the winter and winds up at their school for the spring football season, guess what they almost all did with very few exceptions? They transferred after the transfer deadline for that school. So there's just stuff in there that's absolutely ridiculous. I think that when you go to court, if this goes to court, you never know what's going to happen to court. It's filed on state-friendly grounds. It's in the state of Wisconsin. I think a lot of stuff is very possibly going to drop about Wisconsin through third parties. Receipts are not just a one-way street. I would think it will be a very interesting summer, depending upon how things go, unless everybody is working the back channels to smooth this out. And ultimately, I think this is a cell phone by the Big Ten, more specifically, because the contract you're talking about, which is the template that Wisconsin did, if you just waited till after the House settlement to make that your default thing, you wouldn't have to be proving that it's valid anymore, right? The timing is everything. That contract, that whether it's a good contract or bad, whether the template is good or bad, is probably perfectly acceptable in a court of law, especially if you could start paying the player on that contract day one after July 1st or right into July 1st, right? Because all these other things have now happened. The collective one is a little bit different. There's probably a stronger case there, but that only went through June 30th, and it's non-exclusive, and there's nothing that says that they couldn't have asked Xavier Lucas to do whatever he wanted or was required to do, or even go after him for some money. But they didn't do that. They didn't go after Xavier. I think they're going to have a tough case, but it's also Wisconsin in their state, and who the hell knows what will happen. So same thing I said back in January. You can go back and look at it. Everyone's going to dismiss what I have to say just because I'm a Miami fan. I literally checked this with a dozen different sports lawyers.
Well, that's the thing. And you know, I caution fans on both sides of this. As fans, we don't know everything that there is to know about the case.
Correct.
We don't know what Wisconsin has as evidence. We don't know what Miami has as evidence in its defense. We've kind of got to go based off of hearsay, a lot of rumor, a lot of innuendo. I don't think this makes it to court. I said this on Friday. I believe this gets settled. I believe it's in the best interest of all parties that it just gets settled. That Wisconsin gets some money from Miami and we get some kind of settlement deal going on. But I do have some questions for you as a Miami fan, Rock, and I think these are important questions to ask. You said Miami's not going to say anything, at least for the first 20 until they have to respond in the legal sense.
Yeah, I have no reason to think it would be anything different. That's not generally how Miami has responded or not responded or weighed in on anything from realignment on down. But do I know that for a fact? I do not. But that's my guess. But if they're going to respond, they're not gonna. If they're going to do a response publicly, it's going to be tomorrow or Tuesday. They're not going to wait till the last day, right? Because if you're going to try to do something in the court of a public opinion, if you're going to go down that road, sooner is better than later. But I suspect that we won't hear anything until whatever day they decide to respond, which could be 20 days, or they might have something ready in 5 days. I don't know.
Now, let me ask you this. As a Miami fan, Big Ten came out within an hour after this news broke supporting Madison, Wisconsin. We have not heard anything from the ACC. Not even going all the way back to when this first started in December and January, February, March. Jim Phillips has said nothing on this to even support the University of Miami, which is a member institution of the ACC. It's also a member institution that actually supported Jim Phillips and Jack Swarbrick in bringing Stanford, Cal, and SMU on board. It was one of the ones that actually stood for those,
Yep.
while Clemson, Florida State, and North Carolina, and at one point North Carolina State, were all opposed to it. How, as a fan, as a Miami fan, do you feel, has the ACC let down the University of Miami by at least not coming out and just saying, hey, we're standing beside our institution?
Well, I think they're going to get around to it as soon as Jim Phillips can find his notes to go out and advocate for Florida State in the playoffs 2 years ago. Then he'll get to this.
And that's a question I want to ask you, because it seems like Jim Phillips, and I know I harp on Notre Dame a lot, but if it was something Jack Swarbrick wanted or Pete Bevacqua wanted, Jim Phillips would be all over it, and they're not even a member of the ACC yet. Miami's been a member of the ACC for almost 20 years now, I think.
Yeah.
And they wholeheartedly have supported Jim Phillips in everything he wanted to do. The unequal revenue sharing, which for obvious reasons they did that, but Stanford, Cal, SMU, everything they've supported Jim Phillips. And it seems odd to me, and I think this might be indicative of what the problem is in the ACC, that nobody is there. There is no collective or sense of brotherhood, for lack of a better term. In the ACC, it almost seems like everybody is out for themselves, and Jim Phillips is unwilling to he's willing to do more for Notre Dame, who isn't a member, than he is for the guys who are members of his conference. And how do you feel about that?
I'm indifferent about it. I'm so done with Jim. Like, he's Lazarus. He's like basically dead, waiting for Jesus to come and bring him to life every once in a while, which is why he responds when Notre Dame says something, right? Because I think it's like adjacency. Listen, there's not a lot of things that a lot of Miami and Florida State fans agree on, but Jim Phillips being useless. You can be in a leadership position, it doesn't make you a leader. And even optically, you should be defending your institutions. But, I'm, to be honest, until you asked me the question, I didn't even think twice about it, because I just have no expectations about Jim Phillips doing anything, even when Dan Radakovich says things, a year and a half ago, like being a proud member of the ACC with whatever political optics things he does. I have no expectation, so I wasn't even pissed about it. It's just like just knocking a fly that lands and you just get rid of it.
Would jaded be a good term? You're just jaded.
I don't know. What's the next level of jaded?
Extremely jaded. I don't know.
Extremely jaded. Mad Dog 2020 jaded.
All right, Ryan Willie has responded with a super chat here. Ryan, I appreciate that. You didn't need to do that. We could open the phone lines for you. I know Lucas is gone. Miami has a history of cheating. There's an ESPN 30 for 30 about it. There's two. In my opinion, that's how Miami won their natties. Miami coach contacted the family, and Wisconsin is seeking compensation. I hope Miami never gets in the Big Ten.
Yeah. So, it's you're right. You're right, Ryan. They never recruited Lucas and came in second. There was no family relationships to reach out to Miami, and Wisconsin's so great. By the way, who's on probation right now? Could be, I don't know, Wisconsin. Just saying. So it's probably not a really good time to talk about cheating, just in my opinion. I love you, man, but like, if you're going to come hard, I'm not going to sit here and just take it either. But I appreciate the donation for the channel. I'm a guest here, so I can't say everything I want. I won't do that. But you can watch me on my own channel if you want to hear me say everything I want with that.
You're going to do a rant tomorrow night, correct?
Yeah, but I'm going to have lawyers on as well, because I'm not trying. Like, I'm a Miami fan, but I've also called shit on Miami on your shows, right? So I don't say things just because I think it's depending on. This is what I really think. If this was Florida State versus Wisconsin, I would say the exact same thing. Right? To the things I know. And what I know right now is what's in the lawsuit as filed, right? What I know is what contract, basic 101, like law school 101, not even law school, you're a business student. What are the 7 parts of a contract, or 6, depending on what school you went to? Apparently, Wisconsin left out 3 in their programming. So that's what I'm talking about. Are there extenuating other circumstances that I don't know? Are we going to find out that a Miami coach did actually impermissibly contact him? Yeah, maybe then he can become a coach at Wisconsin, because they just got probation for 9 people doing that. So I will, if new information comes in that changes it, cool. If Miami actually did something worth being sued for, I will sit there and deal with that, right? Like, that's the reality of the matter. But it's not going to change that a contract requires you to have all the conditions ready, and you have to exchange consideration. And Wisconsin's part on revenue share was not in place at the time this all went down. The collective thing is probably a stronger case than the school of Wisconsin is.
All right. I will have to say this first. Miami, they do have a history of cheating. Everybody had a history of cheating back then. The 90s were really wild with the under the door payments and the bagman stuff. But we've got to be fair to Miami. The last time they cheated with Nevin Shapiro, they weren't winning shit. They were losing more often than not.
As long as we're cool, we can do all this all day if everyone wants to. I'm totally fine, but like, just know that I know my shit. And if we really want to talk about how it's really amazing how, a school like Miami, in the area that it was, got blasted back in those days to the 30-30 thing. And, good old Southern boys with car dealerships didn't, and what the differences might have been, we can certainly go there too.
Everybody was doing unethical things back in the 1990s. Florida, Steve Spurrier was doing it at Florida.
Ironically, Moen, the things that everyone's like sitting there pointing about cheating are basically things that we have all come to the realization now are actually illegal acts on the NCAA.
Right.
Illegal acts by the NCAA, right? Every single one of those things is around getting around that athletes weren't being compensated and people were trying to compensate them, essentially, right? And now every school is trying to do that. And there's a $2.8 billion settlement for just 8 years worth of back pay as a result. So whatever, it's all good. Love you, Ryan, though. And I appreciate what you're doing for the channel here and what you do for Greg. So
absolutely. We love having Ryan. He's my Badger brother from another mother. But I will say this, Wisconsin is seeking compensation. I think they probably will get compensation. He hopes Miami never gets in the Big Ten. Ryan, unfortunately, I think Miami still has the inside track on the Big Ten. And I'll tell you why. I meant to say this on Friday, and we got caught up in the whole MD 2020 thing. But prior to Oregon and Washington getting into the Big Ten, Ohio State had significant issues with the University of Oregon. Like significant issues. Similar to what Oregon was doing recruiting wise and contractual wise. And Oregon ended up making amends somehow. I don't know how. I just know they got mitigated. They were mitigated. Ohio State relented, and Ohio State let Oregon join the Big Ten Conference. I think that Miami and Wisconsin are probably both going to be in the Big Ten within the next 5 years. Maybe this becomes a rivalry because of it. I don't know. The Xavier Lucas Trophy. I don't know. But
hey, I'd love to go play games in Madison. It'd be fine by me.
Oh yeah, Miami or Madison's a great. Madison is one of the great ones you got to go to. Just any college football fan, go to University, jump around. It's just fantastic. But yeah, I think Miami does have the inside track, but I do think Miami does compensate Wisconsin at the end of this. The only disagreement Nate and I have is I think Miami might issue some kind of statement of, I've said apology, maybe not apology, maybe, I don't know, taking some form of responsibility or saying, hey, we need clarification on things. Let's get some clarification on things, on how we're doing this. But yeah, I think Miami has the inside track still. The market, and I think with private equity money, it's going to become even more important. But thank you for your super chat, Ryan. Again,
yes,
you don't need to do
Ryan.
that. You don't need to do that, sir. I can give you the phone number. You can call in if you ever want to do that. Just give me
and if you're a Wisconsin fan, I get it. Like, you have every right to feel whatever way you want to feel about it. But Mo, it's interesting that you bring up that that response there, because most of the latest chalk, right, the latest rumors, conversation, and on this one, I clearly got more of that. I mean, I've always been thinking that Big Ten was going to be Miami eventually, but that's had a roller coaster ride of, like, is that true or not? Is it self-fulfilling prophecy, wish casting, whatever it might be? But between things that Greg has said on his channel and things that you've mentioned or brought to the shows that you're doing on the Mafia Network, all of those conversations actually have been very front and center since the Xavier Lucas situation actually already happened, right? So if those conversations were happening within circles in the Big Ten, most of those circles would probably have had an idea that there still doesn't mean there wouldn't necessarily be something big coming down the legal front. But I guess it's possible that those were completely separated, and one hand doesn't know what the other hand is rumoring about. But yeah, that's the only concern. I don't think Miami will do a mea culpa unless there's doing that for pure optics reasons of any degree, because I don't believe everything I know, everything I've heard is Miami does not feel that they did anything wrong at all. That, if anything, Wisconsin exacerbated this by violating the NCAA laws of about the time period to put the player into the portal, regardless of what his situation was with the collective, because there's no specific out in the NCAA rules, so there's no punishment either for not putting somebody into the portal within 48 hours and restricting their movement at the time, pending any new things that happen with revenue sharing and contracts and buyouts that are coming to the pass. So we shall ultimately see what happens in that regard. And a pro tip for everybody as well, since this is in there, just because somebody commits to recruit to a school, schools recruit them all the way through. And just because a collective, anyone's collective, signs short-term NIL deals, month-to-month payments to try to get their verbal commitment, nothing's official to signing day, period. That's just another thing that is in there.
That was made clear this weekend when a recruit decommitted from Oklahoma and within 2 days committed to Florida State. So, yeah, I mean,
it's Florida State to Oklahoma. I saw that Florida State had decommitment, but maybe there's a.
I think it was Oklahoma and then Florida State. It was a quarterback, I believe. But I mean, listen, anymore I've got Hayes Fawcett on Twitter, and it's just like, this guy just decommitted. He's been committed to this school since May. He's been committed for 3 weeks and he's already decommitted. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's like we said with Jeremiah Smith, Ohio State and Miami were bidding over Jeremiah Smith, and Ohio State won. I don't think Ohio State won financially, but I think having Brian Hartline certainly helped lure Jeremiah to Ohio State.
Absolutely.
But it was right up until that, Ryan Day was doing a presser when it happened. He said, "Was the paperwork signed? Let's make sure that paperwork's faxed over before we start celebrating."
If you don't believe that recruits are getting paid to verbally commit early, or are getting collective deals that are just through signing day and are paid month to month, you're not clued into how it's working.
Allegedly, the rumor is USC is paying its commits, I think, 5 figures a month up until signing day.
Yeah, they're not the. I mean, I have heard that. I'm 99% sure on one of them. Other than like literally seeing the money get wired through. But they're not, that's not a shot at USC. There are other schools that are doing. There's a lot of schools that are doing that because, optics matter. Momentum matters, right? Getting big recruits in and seeing like your school has momentum helps others come in. And, the more you hang out with somebody, the more you're, so to speak, dating them, the more likely you might wind up to like actually like them. So I'm not even mad that players do that or take that, or that schools are doing that. Like, that's the game. You want people to come to your school. You want them to be involved. You want to have like the rankings show good. USC is currently like the #1 recruiting class. They have a lot of recruits. Not all of them are 5 stars, right? It's a points thing. If you change things from total recruits times points, you get them to more like a 10. But optically, they're getting talked about as the #1 recruiting class. And if they have a good season, they'll probably keep most of their recruiting class. And that'll be a great thing for that program. So it's a worthwhile investment, whatever way you need to, either pure desire of a student to go there or keeping somebody, engaged and not out of somebody else's hands that they might like less, but is offering them money.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Ryan, for your super chat. I'm going to play a little on Wisconsin. And we'll put whiskey up there for you. Little flex, little Hulk Hogan pose, old AWA style. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan. All right, guys, we've been on the air for almost 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and kick off the X feed. If you're watching us over on X/Twitter, you're going to have to join us over here on the YouTube side at the CFB Mafia on YouTube. Head on over that way. You can continue to watch there. Go ahead. Next, remove. And we're still good on YouTube. All right. Now we're going to roll in and do some shout outs. We've talked a little bit about this. We're going to talk about it some more, but I want to get some shout outs because we've had a lot of people flying in here. But first, I'm going to let you go ahead and promote your show you're doing tomorrow night.
Yeah, tomorrow night we are going to do a show completely dedicated to this whole lawsuit with the lawsuit up and key parts of it, and I welcome anyone who has a different opinion that is based on fact and not emotion. I took a little emotion there, but I am doing my best with whatever glasses you want to say I have to literally just look at it as best I can from the contract side for someone who is not a lawyer but has been the business development person on a ton of similar type of contracts that name, image, and likeness are in play for different industries, as well as just how talent gets paid. So that is my frame. I know how to read these, but you do not want to call me if you get arrested. But that's why I try to get as well, like Nate does too. I have, people in different industries who are lawyers who can look at this stuff, and hopefully we're going to have 1 or 2 of them on tomorrow. But I'm also more than welcome if a Wisconsin person who has an understanding of the contracts wants to join in and be a guest on there and kick it with like mutual respect. I'm totally fine to do that too.
Absolutely. And you can find that over on CFBX Press. That's just the letter X, PRESS, right here on YouTube. Would you say 8 p.m.?
8 p.m., correct.
8 p.m. tomorrow night. And then Nate, this week. He's going to have his conversation that got delayed with Fergie about the public-private partnership element of college football and how that could affect things. And then he is also going to try and do a consigliere show with several sports attorneys, representatives, and agents, and try and hash this all out, assuming that something doesn't break before then, which you never know. All right, Ryan Willie was first. He said he didn't like the thumbnail, and I let him know that is OpenAI. I gave it an instruction to do an artistic representation of University of Miami poachers with their poached Wisconsin football player, and that's what it came up with. So
it's all AI's fault.
All
we
AI's
need Moen.
fault.
We do actually need you to build an agent and just have Moen AI and solve that problem.
Yes. Nothing would get solved. Daniel Gygax was here. Hello, everyone. Good to see you, Daniel. Hopefully you're back from Vegas and it's a little cooler where you're at now. Bob Swanger, Nittany Lion, is here. Good to see you, Bob. Thanks for jumping in. Mr. Ed Wayner, the whole Wisconsin versus Miami is a distraction, so Wisconsin fans don't start calling for Fickler's job. Little too late on that, Mr. Ed. Most Wisconsin fans are calling for Luke Fickell's job, and I know Ryan Willie is one. So
Ryan is not the charter member of the Luke Fickell fan club.
Right, absolutely. So
something we agree on.
Yeah, and Wisconsin's got a hell of a schedule this year looking at it. So hey, he's going to have to get to a bowl game and win, I think, to keep his job. Caleb Ramirez is here. He says, hi, all. Good to see you, Caleb.
What's up, Caleb?
Daniel Gygax, I was in Las Vegas last week. I'm glad I drove back to the Bay Area today. A lot better weather. Yeah, but it's a dry heat.
I thought we were going to lose Daniel melting like the Wicked Witch of the West on the sidewalks of Vegas this past week.
Hey, guys, Big Ten HQ kind of feels like Miami this weekend, so maybe the lawsuit is fitting. Yeah,
get ready for the humidity for your road trips, y'all.
Yeah, definitely. It's been muggy here. John Dry hopes Miami comes to the Big 12. I'm sure they won't. Yeah, here's the thing, and I'm trying not to upset Florida State fans, but all these signs just point to Miami. The AAU thing. They had to get that AAU status by schmoozing with Big Ten. In fact, I would be shocked if Wisconsin didn't vote to give Miami AAU status.
I'm pretty sure they did. I mean, that's the ironic part is on an administration level, the history is between Wisconsin and Miami in a good way, right? Because Donna Shalala was, chancellor or whatever the official title of Wisconsin was, went to the Clinton administration, then became the Miami president. So there's a lot of history there in terms of working together in the background, going back some time. But
yeah, Greg touched on it a little bit last week. If you bring in private equity, they're going to look to expand the brand. And in order to expand the Big Ten brand, you've got to get into new markets domestically, but almost equally as important, you've got to get into international markets. And you look at the Big Ten is in international cities. They're New York, international markets. Chicago, international markets. Los Angeles, international markets. Seattle, international markets. If they ever get into the Bay Area, international markets. University of Miami. That could be the pathway to the Caribbean, South America, Central America, exporting the Big Ten to those countries through the University of Miami and the Miami marketplace.
Absolutely. I think that thing that with that sort of mindset, which I know I heard Greg talk about it regarding the SEC specifically. I do remember that. A thing just to keep in mind is Miami has a disproportionate international student body relative to most institutions. I mean, look, all schools with big graduates programs have large degrees of international students relative to their overall student body, especially on the grad school level. Miami's always been a gateway to South America, Latin America. But the other thing, too, is Miami may not be in the top 5 brands to some or whatever rankings for the U.S., but Miami's logo is probably actually higher ranked internationally for a college school, a college brand, than a lot of others that might be higher ranked here. And like that can be down as simple as to The Rock, right? Or past people who are like international superstars, Gloria S, like all these international stars that have had reach. So if that's the thing, I don't think anyone's making a decision only on that, to be clear. It's one of 30 factors, right? 20 factors, whatever the number is. But
Yes, absolutely.
but I want Florida State to go with Miami. Like my goal is wherever Miami and Florida, like I want them to stick together in the conference ideally. That's like what I would prefer personally.
Yeah, it's just Miami. I think they have the inside track right now to be number 19. Depending on whatever happens with the ACC, if they ever get that figured out. Tawtown Hawk, good to see you, Tawtown Hawk. I'll give you a little Jayhawk squat. It's over. AI will do everything from now on. 2029 football recruiting departments will be AI. Coordinators will call plays with AI. Coaches will call timeouts based on AI recommendations. Very interesting you brought this up, Tawtown Hawk. I sent this over to Greg last week. Ohio State just opened a new computer and athletics huge deal down there. That is basically coaches for every athletic program at Ohio State can go in and use this system for recruiting, to monitor social media, to do, above and beyond what, Woody Hayes would show up at a kid's living room. Now the coach goes and sits at a computer and has all this information on hand, doesn't have to sit at a Friday night football game or go, so I will have to find the link for that, and I will post that link on Twitter at Moen After Dark. But yeah, it's interesting. They've put from what I understand, a lot of money and research into it at Ohio State.
Well, I'm hoping that your recruiting model at Ohio State does the AI hallucinating when I work with like ChatGPT, and it tells me something that I actually know is incorrect, and tells me that I'm wrong.
Yes, I know. Chat, and listen, guys, I subscribe to ChatGPT. I do use it for my work. We use it here on the channel a lot. You have to fact check You have to fact check all AI. Like trying to get it to talk about Pac-12. It thinks the only 2 members of the Pac-12 are Oregon State and Washington State. Prospective members like Boise State and San Diego State who have already agreed to be in the Pac-12, and then you'll correct it and it'll go, oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's super great, especially, when you're using an AI and depending upon which one it is and which version you're doing, their knowledge base could be X amount of days in the past, right? Or months in the past. It's getting different, more and more as we go on. But if I say to, in the last couple of weeks as an example of, give me something about like these college football coaches, remember that it's June 1st, 2025, I'll still sometimes get responses talking to me about Nick Saban in Alabama for the 2025 season.
Yeah. It's just buyer beware. If you're using AI, it's not infallible. Illini Ted, we like to think of these things as game over and realignment, but are they really? Remember when Florida State would never go to the SEC or ESPN? I think Miami, while not in good with big now, will be fine later. Yeah, I think things get, que sera, serad. Skaven, yes is here. He says, hello, gentlemen. Good to see
What's
you,
going
Skaven.
on?
Shonsky's in the house. Good to see you, Shonsky. OPD Don, has Feinbaum said anything on this matter? No, but I'm sure he'll figure out some way that it boosts the SEC.
Yeah, I think he's still recovering from dunking on the Pac-12 last week.
Rocket Ran, I hope you didn't pay too much for those 12 lawyer meetings. Billable hours forever undefeated. Yeah, lawyers.
Yeah, it was fractional. It was all fractional.
I just want to say Burt is a treasure, not only for the Illini, but for the whole of the Big Ten. He called out the whole SEC for ducking the challenge and staying at 8 conference games. Absolutely, Illini Ted. I love Burt. Bert is one of my favorite coaches. You know, and I know he got his ass kicked in the SEC, but I love the guy because he will stir shit. He is
He's
a
like
shit stirrer.
he's like Lane Kiffin, but the guy you actually want to have a beer with,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And I would like to do at least a minor, first step of multiple step process on. Congratulations, Brett Yormark. Not so much ACC, but whatever. I appreciate you listening to me and figuring out the first step you needed to do was to make sure the SEC and the Big Ten got enough fight. Now you at least can live to fight another day, even if the worst case is you go there. You can't be in the game if you're out of the game. Separating the latest version of the alliance was well done. Congratulations.
Yeah, I promised myself I wouldn't get too much in tonight to calling the SEC soft, but you know.
Listen, you got to do what you have to do, Moen.
Yeah, I trust me. You got to see my DMs of all the angry SEC people. Devil Frog, with commissioners like Phillips to represent your interests, who needs enemies?
I mean, it's a good thing he's not your lawyer. If he is, you would never want Jim Phillips to be representing you in court.
Yeah, definitely. The other counsel would yell objection and he would withdraw. Morris Simmons, good to see you, Morris. This is not a good look for Miami trying to get in the Big Ten. ACC Commissioner Phillips is not going to do anything. That's why FSU wanted out. Now that Miami is going to find that out.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Morris, up to a degree. Just because Miami wasn't public going down the lawsuit case pathway that Florida State did, and thanks for doing that, and Clemson doesn't mean that there was a lot of love for the ACC. I don't. The first person to find love for the ACC from any Miami fan throughout the last few years of this all going on, please let me know. I'd love to find out who that is. And other than Dan Radakovich saying we're proud members of the ACC while carrying a knife on the side to shiv it.
Yeah. And I think this is systemic of the issues in the ACC. It's a leadership vacuum. I think Jim Phillips, we talk about coaching hires, bad commissioner hire. Just
look, if college football was Vietnam, he would have been fragged by now.
By his own soldiers.
Yes.
Have you lost a signed recruit to Miami? You may be entitled to compensation.
Yep.
Christopher Mercado, good to see you, Christopher. I actually hope Miami still does become a member of the Big Ten. Add Florida State or Georgia Tech, and I'm good.
Yeah, I think it's interesting also about the whole situation with this and who isn't or not suing, because man, there's this guy Isaiah Horton, a wide receiver on Miami, who 13.7 seconds after his name was actually in the portal had already signed to Alabama, within the same time frame here. So, for some reason, I don't really see us suing Alabama.
Maybe he had him up on Tinder and he just swiped. Shonsky says this won't be the first suit and won't be the last. That's absolutely true. Well, it is the first suit. As far as I know, this is the first tampering, poaching
of this type,
of this type to come out there, and that's kind of why it's important, and that's kind of why the Big Ten is actually backing up Wisconsin here. They kind of want to get some kind of legal precedent or some kind of framework on how to do these things moving forward.
But the problem with that to me, and look, if others have a different take, and this isn't even about Wisconsin, I actually think the whole lawsuit is more about the Big Ten and the contract than it is about Wisconsin versus Miami. I think it's you were saying it's the first lawsuit, but it's literally one of the last contracts under an old zone that doesn't exist anymore. So I don't get the point of trying to do this to prove something that has flaws in it because the settlement wasn't done yet and you couldn't pay the player on the revenue share aspect from the institution, versus a lawsuit that happens, I don't know, in 10 days over something similar, I think is a massive difference. on what the ramifications of something could be. I don't know that you can assume that plays over. And if you lose off of those grounds that Wisconsin hadn't been able to pay Miami to Xavier Lucas yet, for not the collective, but Wisconsin, then if anything, you damage the future better. And it's a much stronger case for the next one after everything's already in place, in my opinion.
Fergie's here. He says, "Go Buffs." He will be doing a show with Nate. I don't know which day this week, if it's Tuesday or Wednesday, so tune into that. They probably cheated at Illinois too in the 90s, but we still sucked, so nobody cared. Jeff George, man. I'm sure Jeff George got a nice Chevette.
Yeah, there's a Miami-related story to that one. Because I think, I think he was being recruited. I think he might have been committed to Miami before like everything changed.
And then we've got Go Black 45. He says 8 feels great for CWS champs LSU. Congratulations to LSU.
Yeah, congrats. I was rooting for Coastal just for the sake of it, but
yeah, I saw on the Twitter the coach got thrown out in the first. So at least there was some excitement there. John Grove, good to see you, John. There's plenty of room in the Big 12 for Miami. Give us the bright line brawl between UCF and Miami.
Hey, I guess if that happens, it happens. But
Jose says implement transfer fees between clubs for players under contract. I think you probably will see that at some point, or some kind of compensation where you buy out a contract.
Yeah, there's supposed to be buyouts available to schools in theory, and that buyout will come out of your $20.5 million. They've already ruled on that, right, within the structure of the College Football Commission. If somebody gets bought to transfer over and they have a $250,000 buyout, that's $250,000 coming off the other schools. The school that he's going to is $20.5 million.
MBM, in case you missed it on Friday night, Ryan Willie and MBM did Ute and me a solid, and they're making us drink Mad Dog 2020, and the chat decided we're going to get Blue Raspberry, and I've been told the Blue Raspberry is very awful, but I did look at I couldn't buy a bottle today because of Sunday law here in Ohio, but apparently they've knocked down the ABV on MD 2020. When I was growing up, it was 2021. Now it's like 13.7. So
what's the point?
I'm sure the hangover is still awful on it, but thank you, MBM, for going ahead and making sure that I have to drink it along with you. I appreciate that so much. We're going to try and get Nate to drink some Blue Raspberry Kool-Aid, I guess. But if you're out there,
extra shot of sugar.
Right. I think we're going to try and do that on 7/11, July 11th, because you is going to be out of town the Friday coming up. And then the next Friday would be the 3rd. And I think we're going to do our show on Thursday that week. So it'll probably be 7/11. 7/11, which coincidentally enough, you can go into and get a bottle of MD 2020. So should work out pretty well. Thank you guys for that. I think you guys will have fun. We're going to make a big event of it. So definitely tune in. It'll be a good time on a Big Freakin' Friday show. We try and have a little entertainment on Fridays. We get a little nutty. Miami should have paid Wisconsin so this would not come out in public. Now that the Big has come out with a statement, that's not good. But the Big had released a statement already.
Yeah,
before the lawsuit.
January.
Yeah. So that's not too surprising there. Let me see. Tony Lawson says Kia needs the money. Morris Simmons says Florida State is good. Don't pull us in this Miami mess.
Well, I don't know. I will defer to Greg on that one.
The
you
big
want
Lubbock,
Miami to pull you in the mess.
the big Lubbock's in the house saying what up, and they were also first, I'm sure. Friends call me Sean. Why is it when the ACC goes to unequal revenue sharing, it's the death of a conference, but when it's suggested that the Big could do the same, it's now the future? Again, Sean, I don't know if you caught Friday's show. You'll have to go back and watch my opinion on that on Friday's show. I don't think the Big Ten is going to unequal revenue sharing. I think Pat Chun is trying to get money from boosters. Jason Spangler says, is this story still going on? This is why NIL should have nothing to do with the school. Can't keep repeating myself enough.
But this is two parts, right? Technically, it's an NIL deal for the collective, but it's also technically, well, actually a separate part, which is the revenue sharing commitment from one school to a player.
Yeah, and most of they're kind of blending at this point.
Well, people are commingling them because they're jointly
Right.
in the lawsuit, but there's two very different situations that are just in the same conversation because they're connected, because the NCAA always has to Frankenstein everything instead of just going to collective bargaining and paying the damn players for playing.
Alana Ted says our new president at Illinois was working in the Wisconsin administration. We got former Badger coach Burt, of course, and former Badger Aaron Henry is our DC. Next, we will probably take Jump Around. Don't you put that evil. Jump Around is Wisconsin's. And I know a lot of people don't believe this, but Wisconsin is quite the powerhouse in the Big Ten. Maybe not always on the football field, but they control a lot of the stuff in the Big Ten. They're a very vocal out front member of the Big Ten decision making crew.
They're a big influencer. They have a big NIL deal with the Big Ten.
Stormy Cyclone, good to see you, Stormy. Is the Big Ten trying to make an example of the Miami kid for future transfers?
Oh, Wisconsin, you should definitely stay away from talking about transfers. I'm just warning you.
Yeah, I think it's more about just trying to get some kind of framework. Rock, I am pulling for Miami in the lawsuit against Wisconsin. I don't want Tennessee to sue Tech for Texas Tech enhancing a softball player's financial situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, God forbid, any players in the future decide they want to return to go to school after they went away for a time and they want to go home. Everyone will always assume that they cheated.
If it's Mo and AI, it will be all Tarleton ads.
Is there anything wrong with that?
There do. At the gas station today, I brought this up, and lady behind the counter said that she thinks there is a cigarette brand named that. I asked her to confirm if I can get a pack of them. I will get a pack of them. But she said they were like some off-brand highway cigarette, like the cheapest dirt cigarette you could get. But I told her to find out for me. If she could find out for me from the distributor, I would love to get a pack of them. I don't know. It was only 114 in Las Vegas. Thankfully, the MGM Grand has nice air conditioning. Yep, that's what I would do because I'd lose all my money in 30 minutes. Jason Spangler says Big Ten members love Miami's institution. They hate Miami athletics. That's my theory anyway. I'll let you know the Big Ten wasn't a fan of Oregon's institution, and there were certain teams that weren't fans of Oregon's athletics. But Oregon is a member of the Big Ten Conference. They were conference champions last year, #1 seed in the playoffs. And I don't know what happened in the playoffs. I have to ask them about that.
I don't know. I turned it off.
After the first quarter.
Yeah, I had better things to do, like watch the paint dry on the wall.
I loved it.
I'm sure you did.
I'm with you, Rock. Miami and FSU rival brothers.
That's a man I can respect.
Dave's here says Kiffin seems like that dude who thinks he is the smartest guy in the room. Yeah, Kiffin's the kind of guy who would just you're sitting in a pool chair and he would just like take your pool chair at a pool, or
Yeah.
pick up your drink and start drinking it.
Kiffin's problem is that there are a couple of things he might actually be the smartest thing in the room, but he also thinks he's like the smartest guy in the room on global thermonuclear warfare.
Yeah. Pit Sniper Husker arrived just in time to agree with Ted wholeheartedly. Lane Kiffin's the kind of guy who would eat half a meal and then complain about it. Try and get a refund.
I wish, not because of personality, but I do wish he was like Nebraska's coach, because I think he would do a better job there.
Yeah,
get the program back.
I don't know if you caught it this weekend. If you didn't, you can find it on Twitter. Matt Rule, he did a photo with Dylan Raiola where Matt Rule is riding a Brahma bull inside the Nebraska weight room. So I
mean, Brian Kelly is calling Matt Rule and saying, "Bro, thank you. My dance doesn't look so bad anymore."
Dave's here. How was Wisconsin suing Miami? If they had a contract, it was with the player. Great point.
To interfere with the player, tortuous interference that they are not actually suing because the contract wasn't a contract yet, because they hadn't paid him yet, is my opinion. But we'll see what the lawyers say, either the Twitter lawyer sphere or in court eventually.
If it gets that far.
If it gets there.
Matthew says, go Utah. Fair enough. Fergie says, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Colorado, Kansas, Arizona State, Utah, BYU is a powerful group of 10 for a P3 conference. Texas Tech can hop in also. I can't disagree with you there. They're still not going to get the kind of money that the SEC and the Big Ten are getting, though.
Yeah, that is a raise the floor, close the gap on the ceiling, but there's still multiple floors in that building above you.
Yeah, I recall MD was 20% alcohol volume and part of why it was called 2020.
Yeah, what's the point if it's not?
I don't understand it myself, but then again, like I tried to explain to you, they didn't have flavors when I was growing up. You had grape and grape. And they were awful. Good Lord, that's less alcohol than wine. Geesh. Yeah, I know. I was surprised too, but I figured it's probably like one of those shrinkflation things where they're saving money, because it's like $5.68 a bottle too. And like I told you, when I was growing up, I could get 2 bottles of it and 2 packs of cigarettes for $10.
At the rate they're going, it'll be the first rubbing alcohol you can use for your injuries as well as sip.
$10 and not remember the weekend. MD 2020 should be chased. There will be no chasing. There will be no chasing. We're not going to do that to you guys. We agreed. We're getting a bottle. We will drink the entire bottle on the air on Friday. We will not chug it. Ute was terrified of chugging it. I might give it. I want to take a sip first. I want to swallow first before I try and chug it. Like the old Mad Dog 2020 I used to drink. If you could get past the first swallow, you could start drinking it pretty easily. But separating a conference into haves and have-nots will kill the conference eventually, unless the unequal is revenue based on postseason success. I still think that hurts somewhat, even if it is based on postseason success.
Plus, the Big Ten already has unequal revenue sharing, right? Because Ohio State's brand and alumni base is so big that the money you get in the areas that you don't have to share dwarfs most of the conference. There's multiple millions of gap there between most of the programs in the Big Ten from top to bottom, outside of the things that everybody splits equally.
Dave's here says she's thinking of Carlton's. Pit Snipe Husker says Tarleton's exist. Tawtown Hawk says they're right between the American Spirits and Paul Malls. No, those are expensive cigarettes. And then Pit Sniper says it's Terryton. You might be right. Dave's here also says Terrytons. I think the lady at the convenience store was thinking of Terryton. She might have. This time out is sponsored.
Drank some Mad Dog 2020 and it's a little bit lit.
This time out is sponsored by Tarleton. Step outside and ponder should your team go for it on 4th down with the Tarleton.
Maybe that's the reason why Mario Cristobal didn't take a knee a couple of years ago. Wrong cigarette.
It just happened to be against a team named Georgia Tech.
There's an organic reason to drink for those.
There you
do.
go. Everyone is the smartest guy in the room about something. It's when you think it's everything that it's an issue.
That's a very kind take there, Dave's here, because there's definitely some people that are never the smartest thing about the room other than, I don't know, that they know their own personal life story better than anybody else in the room.
You know, I don't like to say bad things about anybody, but Lane Kiffin's a fucking asshole. Tortuous interference. Miami internationally disrupted Wisconsin's. I think intentionally disrupted Wisconsin's contract with the player, which will result in lost future profits. That's the gist of it.
Yeah, the interesting thing to me, because this part I don't know, is the allegation that someone from Miami met with Xavier. Again, like, we'll see if that happens, but I guess my question would be timeline. So if that in fact happened, which I don't know if it did, when did it happen? Like, did it happen 2 weeks after Wisconsin violated NCAA rules by not putting him in the portal? In which case Miami might say, well, you were purposely keeping somebody who had every right to be in the portal from meeting with teams, so we did it because we knew you were violating the NCAA laws. But again, I don't know that anybody did or didn't meet. That part, we have to wait to see what the evidence is.
It's slightly higher than wine. That's the fortified part. Yeah, it's LEFV, low-end fortified wine. By the way, I also looked up Thunderbird. Thunderbird discontinued their original formula. It is a new Thunderbird. So the holy trinity of Thunderbird, MD20, and Night Train have apparently been clipped. So I don't know if it's just meth took a bigger market share or what's going on there, but like all the bum wines are lower alcohol, more expensive. It's, you know, it's like they're pricing out winos, man. Illini Ted says, I see a private equity opportunity. Illini playing on Mad Dog 2020 field going towards the Terryton end zone. Just
I love that this conversation is born of a channel that started with conversations about BYU.
Yes. MD 2020 stands for Mogan David. Mogan David.
I thought it was Mowing After Dark.
Yeah, there you go. But once you... Damn, that is a sponsorship opportunity we might look into. But actually, I looked up trying to find sound effects for MD 2020. Couldn't find an MD 2020 commercial. And then I read that one of the ways they promoted MD 2020 is they would leave empty bottles in and around liquor stores so that, you know, bums would see it and say, oh, this must be popular. Joseph Kurlagon Jr., I want this lawsuit to go in favor of Miami to kickstart conference realignment and let the fun begin. I really want new conferences for all. I think a lot of people are looking for that. I do. I think a lot of people are looking for conference realignment. We saw where Pac still out there. Still got to find number 8. Ute released a video that you should definitely check out. It points out why Texas State should be the heavy favorite and why they should deserve more than half share. So definitely check that out. He released that on Friday. Definitely a great video to look at. I agree completely. Would just be interesting to see who gets the call and who gets stuck. When are the Big 12, Big Ten, SEC, ACC meetings?
They begin, the first wave begins like the 14th of July. And then you see
I think there's a governance meetings are tomorrow, though, June 23rd.
Oh, I thought you were I thought he was referring to the media days as opposed to the governance.
Okay. Yes.
But I don't know. Could be both. But the media days meetings start around the 14th and go through like the 24th, depending upon which conference it is. And but yeah, hey, if they have governance meetings, great. They'll have a bunch of meetings, and we'll see them come out of those meetings saying, "Hey, there's a lot of agreement about doing one portal." Going into the meetings, and they come out of the meetings like they will continue the conversations. Nothing has happened.
Aaron Frazier says once the player tells the school coaching staff he wants to transfer, they have 5 days to file the paperwork. Fickle refused to do it for over 5 days. He broke the rules.
Yeah, I mean, technically they have 48 hours to submit the paperwork, not including the weekend. But 5 days, 10 days, 23 days, infinite days, actually, technically at this time. Moot point after mid-January, though.
Pit Snipe Husker says a handle of vodka fell to $10 while MD 2020 rose to 8-ish. Bums can do math too. True, but I mean, like in Ohio, it's like 586, so it's not quite up to 8 yet.
Give it a week.
You can usually tell the alcoholics because they have one of them little shopping carts, the ones you drag behind you, that are like squares. You see them going into the liquor store, they're getting 4 or 5 handles of vodka. Play a bottle clanging on the floor sound for MD 2020. Well, tune in on 7-Eleven because Ute and I might throw up, and there might be a throw up sound effect.
Well, we know which one that's got to be.
Yeah, from everything I'm hearing about Blue Raspberry.
Give me a bucket.
Yeah, give me a bucket. I probably should bring a bucket into the office. Ohio State gets to pick the next school per PATC, and Ohio State will pick Miami even if Wisconsin votes no. Yes, Ohio State does have some leverage in the negotiations, but they would need Wisconsin on board. Wisconsin's one of the top schools in the Big Ten in terms of decision-making leeway, massive university, massive research. And they're one of the originals. So, Stormy Cyclone was talking about the media days. Thanks, Rock.
You are welcome.
MD 2020 commercial would be a guy in the gutter getting checked on by someone to see if they are dead so they can get their stuff, or to see if there's any MD 2020 left in the bottle. Still, it's 1.75 liter versus 20 ounce.
You're making me have to do ounces versus liters. I am not the smartest person in the room when it comes to liters. I can visualize a Coke bottle of 2 liters. After that, I'm done.
We were not told to prepare for conversions. Will PAC have media days this year? If so, I want them to say the media deal is close just for nostalgia's sake. Yeah, I was thinking of that the other day when Kliavkov went to the SMU basketball game.
What they should do is just have like the Oregon State and Washington State ADs there, and just for the karma and craziness of it, have the San Diego State AD just show up for the comedic value to talk about next year's media days.
Yeah. Jim Phillips won't say a damn word, and the San Diego State athletic director can't keep his damn mouth shut.
Who says less, Jim Phillips or Tony Petitti?
Well, that's true, but he releases statements, so.
Strongly worded ones.
Strongly worded statements, but statements nonetheless. Fickle now has something to use for a losing season, in my opinion. He's already had that. I think they've got one of the toughest schedules preseason. Of course, you never know how the season's going to turn out.
It's funny. I just thought about this. It is also ironic about Wisconsin. I'm surprised Miami never dropped receipts on Tyler Van Dyke with Wisconsin. Just throwing that out there. Now, granted, it didn't work out very well for Wisconsin,
Yeah,
but
it didn't work out for Tyler Van Dyke either.
But I wouldn't be surprised if that's not a thing.
Tatan Hawk says, going to look like the Barfarama scene from Stand By Me. Those were blueberry pies. Those were blueberry. This is blue raspberry. And it's like it's an ungodly like neon blue too. It's weird looking. And it's got a gold chain on the bottle for some reason. And I don't know if that's to appeal to a certain demographic or what, but it's got like an MD 2020 and it's got like a gold plated chain on there that says raspberry. MD 2020, pissing on yourself is convenient. Wisconsin is lucky Lucas didn't sue them for not entering his name into the transfer portal, and he's simply unenrolled.
Yeah, I know. Look, it is what it is. All I can think in my head right now, though, Moen, is like I'd rather be drinking Robitussin than what you guys are going to drink. And then I have Chris Rock on my head about Tussin, the Tussin.
Yeah, Tussin. That was Eddie Murphy, I think, actually.
Was it? I thought that was Chris Rock.
I thought that was an Eddie Murphy one from Raw.
All right, somebody's got to ask. Somebody asked Moen AI, is the Tussin joke
someone
Chris
asked
Rock
Moen
joke?
AI, yeah. It might be a Chris Rock one.
Or Eddie Murphy.
My favorite one from the Eddie Murphy is when Bill Cosby calls him up and starts criticizing him for swearing. And so he calls Richard Pryor and he says, "You get paid? Yeah. People laugh? Yeah. Tell Bill Cosby I said suck my dick." Have a Coke.
I swear
and
I
a
used
smile.
to be able to quote both Raw and Delirious like almost every other line.
For me, Richard Pryor, man. Growing up, we had Richard Pryor vinyl records. Just
Sunset.
Live on the Sunset Strip, man. Yeah, that's just the ultimate.
And Carlin, of course. For me, George Carlin.
Expedition Greg's in the house. He says, "Hey, everyone.
What's up, Greg?
Thank you for the gifted membership. I believe Ryan Willie was the one who gifted it to you. It was either Ryan Willie or MBM, so you would have to thank one of them." Expedition Greg says, "Hey, everyone, go Buckeyes." Absolutely. Shonsky's saying it's Chris Rock, so you might be right there. You might be right on the Tussin being Chris Rock. I might be thinking of McDonald's hamburgers. And we ain't got no buns. Just give me a piece of bread out there. We're fine. Very well with you, sir. Xavier Lucas is from South Florida. His father has health issues. If he didn't sign with Wisconsin, he was going to go to Miami.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. Miami probably came in second in the original recruitment. Mario got destroyed about losing Xavier Lucas to Wisconsin. Not as much destroyed as he got over losing Jeremiah to Ohio State, but it was in the next tier. You guys do tiers on the show. It was in the next tier of like, what the hell, Mario?
By the way, 2 highest rated players in the new EA college football, Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs, both 98 overall. Almighty Finn says the Pacers at 48, Thunders at 47.
Wow, I might actually have to watch.
Yeah, it's game 7, isn't it?
It is.
I got some ice cream and you ain't got none because your
can't
mama's
afford it because your mama's on the
welfare.
welfare.
Yeah,
You dropped your ice cream.
I'm telling you, when stand-up comedy used to be, I mean, Richard Pryor, George Carlin, Eddie Murphy, Bill Hicks, just used to be some fantastic, Now I just like Aaron Frazier says, I live here in Florida. Wisconsin has had a little pipeline to South Florida since Bielema was the head coach. You don't want to alienate the South Florida recruits, their high school coach, and their parents. I will go with that. Jason Spangler says the Thunder can't win. They're so overrated. It kills me. Jason, you probably just ensured that the Thunder will win. All right. We'll make that the last one, and we're going to do a little last call here. Let me get the little button up. Last call, Rock and Rant. What is your last call for the night?
I don't take any of this stuff too seriously. So we'll see what happens in that lawsuit. I do just want to understand how it works, whether, what standing is going to happen, and we'll see what happens. I tend to agree with you, Moen, that I don't think it will actually ever get to court. And I think ultimately neither side really wants it to get to court, which is what often happens here. But we shall see. I understand Wisconsin fans. Take your shots. Enjoy. I don't care if you say I cheated. I still went to 5 national title games in my lifetime. I'm cool. Don't care. Ask Michigan fans if they're really upset if they get accused of cheating and losing their title. I know the answer already. And as I always say, inject your hate into my veins. It's what I live for.
Sun Devil ASU, I'm going to make this my last call. What is it about Miami that Ohio State wants so bad? It's a very good school, but what's the connection? If you didn't catch it already, South Florida recruiting. The kingdom of South Florida is everybody recruits from there. Everybody recruits from there. Everybody recruits from there. It would be very, very good for Ohio State to have a school that they can say, hey, look, you will get to play in front of your family.
Correct.
Because we play Miami this year at Miami, so you will get to play there. It's another one of the things that makes Georgia Tech. People say, well, Georgia Tech's not a very good football program, which they're getting better. I don't sleep on Georgia Tech, but yes, but Georgia has become such a huge area for recruiting. You want to get a recruiting foothold in there. Same reason they would look at a Texas school. Get that recruiting foothold. Recruiting is important. And as far as the media partners go, media partners want that too. I think Miami's the number 12 DMA in the nation. So it's a huge DMA. Again, if you're getting into private equity, international markets, Miami opens up the Latin America market to you potentially. So definitely lots of reasons for all the love for Miami. In addition, it's a private school. They don't have to worry about all the politics going on in the state of Florida, which makes it more attractive. So and I don't think Ohio State's the only one who likes that. I think Michigan likes that. I think Penn State likes that. I think Wisconsin will like that. I think Iowa likes that. Everybody in the Big Ten is going to want to recruit in South Florida, and having a school in South Florida only helps you. It only helps.
Plus, your alumni base will love the not having to take a road trip to go to an away game. And there's a lot of your alumni base in Central and South Florida.
Same thing with Atlanta Metro. Yep. So want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. If you're new here, make sure you give us a like, you subscribe, you turn on notifications. We're releasing videos almost every day now, and we've got streams coming up. I would remind you that Nate's got a stream coming up this week with Fergie. Definitely check that out, talking about private-public partnerships. And then he's going to try and do a consigliere show with some attorneys and agents and all those people who know what all the big words mean. And that should be very informative, and they will definitely talk about the future of tampering and tortuous interference in the NCAA and college football in general. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight again. You can find us both on Twitter. I'm at Moen After Dark. He's at Rock and Rant. And check out his show tomorrow night on CFB Express. Until next Sunday, say thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for the super chat, sir.
Thanks, Ryan.
It is much appreciated. And peace out. We'll catch you guys next Sunday. And I will see you probably on Friday.